Y'all, let's talk a few skull cleaning frequently asked questions. First and foremost, where did I get this super sick shirt? That's from my buddy Ben over at Shed Crazy. Why do I like it so much? Because it's freaking hilarious and I love it. Go over there, Shed Crazy, and buy one if you want to look super cool like me. And no, he didn't pay me to say that. He didn't even know I was going to say it. And I bought this at full retail at the expo. So there. The number one question I get. What knife do you use? I pay for the Silverware IBK interchangeable blade knife. And I always, in every case, run the Havel, some of you know it as Havalon, but the Havel 70 XT blades. It's got a rounded tip and it's sharp around both sides. This is my favorite package, the best I found so far. This is the one I like. Question number one. I guess it'd be two. One, two, check. Anyway, today I've got a mixed bag of critters. I picked up 4 heads today. I think there's 3 sheep and a pig in there. And I'm just gonna clean them. And as I'm cleaning them and I'm going through those questions that come up all the time, I'm gonna discuss them. I also wanna talk about doing skull work in heat. Right now, just about everywhere in the States, it's warm. And so over the past, I don't know, 300 or 400 skulls, I've had 2 or 3 situations where I've got a critter inside the skull and it's always warm days. The skulls are clean, but there's just enough area in there for a fly to go in and lay. I know so many of you have run into this situation. What do we do? How do we address it? Rule number 1 there, your nose knows best. If you are getting some sort of, just something's a little off when it's drying, something isn't quite fresh, believe me when I tell you, something got in there, laid an egg, and you're smelling some spoiled stuff. Mr. Beans is losing his brain. Let's go get him. Is that too hot for your feet? Hey. This dog is my favorite animal in the whole world. I don't know why I put my face there. Look right here. Back to bed for this guy. When I opened that bag, a couple of flies flew out of there, so they're already on it. I've said it before, I have very few flies down here in Huntington, but for whatever reason this year with all the moisture, I don't know, but it's crazy. This sheep right here has got a big old chunk out of his horn, and I imagine that's why he was deemed unhealthy. So for right now, I'm just going to take and remove some of this extra shock absorber from the back of the head on the sheep. I'm going to get both eyes out. This one came pretty clean. And then I'm going to get it right in a pot. I don't want any of this to dry. If it dries, it will stain dark. Same story with this ram. Big old chunk out of his horn. There's literally the remnant of a bod fly, right, 2 of them right there. Just know that these things are coming with critters in them to wherever you're doing your work. You gotta make sure you get it clean. When you tear the jaw off, you get these wings, I call them, up underneath up underneath the eye socket. Cut these off. Save yourself a bunch of washing and flapping around. We have been using these orange or white tags to identify the animal. Before they would come with the tag, and once they were clean, I would put them on. It's so easy to mess that up when you're doing a bunch of different skulls at once. So we have found that these tags, you can buy them from Uline. I'll put them in the description so you can see them. You can clip them together, put your name on it, the ID numbers and all that stuff, so there's a reference back to where they came from. I clip them on permanently right now. I wash them, boil them, power wash them, whiten them with that tag on it. It never changes. They're so tough, and you're not going to have errors if you just clip them on right now. Just remove an eyeball right through the eye socket. You're good to go. Today's film is not supposed to be fun and upbeat. It's supposed to be informational. I'm going to clean all these rams at the same time. For sure, 100%. This ram has to come out first. It's young. You can tell just from the size and length. I believe it's a black Hawaiian. Black horned rams, they're just not as tough. Whatever the makeup is of the breed or whatever, they just can't handle it. So these two, I'm assuming old Ramalays, super tough. I could abuse them. I could leave them in there way too long. But this one's got to come out. I got to get these cores off, and I got to get them washed. I've had in several situations where I've boiled them just a tick too long and hit it with a hammer and literally cracked the skull in pieces. Now, that wasn't a client's skull. A lot of times I'll ask for overstock or skulls that, you know, an animal that died or something like that, and I'll use them in art projects. And those ones get intentionally neglected because they're extras and free time. That's when I tend to make my most mistakes, is when I'm doing something that really isn't important. Bummer. Alright, so those 3 sheep are in there. I'm starting to boil. No solvents, no soaps, no nothing in there, just pure water. Boil them off, knock the horns off. This one's still frozen, so I'm going to let it thaw. But I'm going to get rid of all this meat I cut off, all the bags. I'm going to hose everything down, the surface area that I'm going to spray on, get it wet. If it's dry and hot outside, the flies are going to come right to those pieces. And it's much harder to spray off dry concrete than it is wet concrete. Anyway, just try to reduce the flies. I keep it in a trash can with a lid. Just keep your environment clean. It's going to make everything better. Y'all check out the stuff that's built up on this pig's teeth. I'm always fascinated by what in the world was he eating that would create that coating on the outside of those teeth. It's crazy. Now, I said it in the beginning, and I meant it. This is not supposed to be one of those fun, upbeat videos. Really just trying to provide some more information, and I'm going to show you some stuff in a little bit more real time. Less cut down, a little more realistic of how it goes. So I'm going to pull this black Hawaiian out. I'm going to kind of get everything ready, and then I'm going to smack those horns. You can see that I'm smacking it against the concrete. It creates a shock effect up and down. And you want to get it to where you're not hitting the tip of the horn. You're hitting kind of the base of the horn. And then sometimes you have to just freehand it. I like to use a sponge to keep the heat away from burning my hand. And then sometimes I have to just do it in individual hands. But this is a real-time piece on how long it takes to get those horns off a small black Hawaiian. Now, most of you have seen this before, but I'm going to cut the horn core a little greater than half. That does a couple of things. It shortens the project, makes everything a little bit more compact, and then I can wash inside there, make sure all the oil, anywhere that the bugs are going to show up, I will be able to wash clean without those horn core tips. They also make great dog chews. Never let that horn core get dry. As soon as it starts to dry, a little air, that's the first place those flies want to go and lay, inside the core. So I just get it hydrated so they can't get in there. And in the middle of washing, I'll pull them out, I'll power wash the inside, get it nice and clean, and then I set them in a drying rack. I'll show you here in a minute. That drying rack has got heated air that blows right up into the core, and I get them dry, dry, dry. Even with every measure I take, sometimes we get one that gets by, but we're trying to do the best we can to keep all that stuff out as these things are winding up in people's homes. Those heavy horn rams won't be ready for a few minutes, so I'm going to wash that black Hawaiian right now while our pig is still thawing. Using a power washer, I like to spray into every hole and every orifice. Anywhere there's meat or tissue, you got to make it go away. Let's get to washing. A couple of things that will make the project faster, cleaner, and much simpler is if you remove the ear butts, the ear canal there. It's called the auditory bowl. You can just take a screwdriver, pop it open, and then I take like a little wafer bit or speed bore, whatever you call it, and I kind of wallow out that real natural hole that's there. Aesthetically, it's beautiful, and it will allow the brain and all that connective stuff to just come out and be really clean and sanitary. Once that's all out, stick your power washer in there, wash out your brain, and then looking right down the nose, I like to pull out all the nasal cavity, nasal bones, and then wash in there really good. Once you've made your mess, don't forget to sweep up, gather up all that big tissue, hose everything down, let's get good and sanitary, and repeat the process on the next animal. Like on the cooking shows, we're just going to pull it all done out of the oven. So I've washed all 3 of those skulls, and I've got it down in a pot of water, and I'm going to add 1 gallon of Mrs. K's Dioxygen 40% by volume liquid developer. And then I'm going to cover it in water. That's about 7 gallons to 1. I've given dozens of ratios, dozens of products. It really doesn't matter. You just want to be boiling water and a peroxide solution together to whiten and degrease. That's the key. So right now I'm bringing everything to a boil. I'm going to pull them out and power wash all the stuff that I missed. You'll be blown away. Anything that's still on that skull is going to be yellow and gelatinous, and you're just going to wash it all off until there is no more anything, just bone. I've repeated that process 4 different times, and I'm going to set them in front of a fan to dry, and we're going to jump right into a brand new day and look at it all finished at the end. 100mm macro lens. I'm really not that close, it just seems like I am. 2 redos today. I'm just going to put them in this film of frequently asked questions. We're going to do the first part of the cow skull, get those horns off. I'm going to try and knock them around right now, see if I can get them off without boiling them. I'm going to go into the deadhead box, if you guys saw that video. I'm going to see if I can't salvage the bridge of the nose and then the nose piece for that cow skull. And then I'm just going to take the power washer to that elk and see if I can get all that paint off there. If it won't come off, I'm going to boil it a little bit just to loosen things up, and then we'll patch up that nose. Remember, never ever use any glue that's not clear. I can tell you by looking first glance, everybody goes and buys Gorilla Glue, triple expanding yellow Gorilla Glue. The stuff is tough, but it's for setting breaks and not aesthetics. Anyway, let's get to cracking. All right, I got those horns off without having to boil them. Because the tissue that goes from the horn core to the inside of the horn has been rotted away, it's just tight. So you just kind of knock it around until they eventually come off of there. I'm going to fill a pot with water and get my boil started right now while I look for a similar shape cow skull where I can rob the bridge and the nose piece. With that done, I'm going to just jump right on the power washer. And before I boil, I'm going to just try and wash off everything I can. Remember, when you get into deadheads and things that have been out in nature forever, there's going to be natural staining due to soil, oil. Hey, it's like a rhyme, soil and oil. Anyway, don't look for perfection here. You're not going to find it. Just get it clean and sanitary and bug-free. Next, I'm going to cut the 2 horn cores off. Then I'm going to put the skull that I'm robbing pieces from, the skull I'm washing, and the horn cores right down in a pot of water. Get everything nice and hot so I can get it sanitary. Remove the nose bones from the other, and then wash those cores in and out. I like to give those back to the client with a coat of Mop and Glow on them. I think they're just a really nice conversation piece, especially if you're ever around kids and you're trying to explain how the horn comes off the horn core. All right, here we go. A little something we have never done here before, but I'm going to rob the nose pieces off this first cow, and then I'm going to take this bridge or whatever you call those bones across the top of the head there. We're going to take both those out and see if we can't salvage them to patch this one bowl together and make him look good. The key here, just push down. Then when we get into the bridge parts, you want to wiggle them kind of right and left. This whole patch project was great in theory, but it was a real pain in the tail. Nothing really goes together just right. It either grows together perfectly or the patch is patchy. So we've got it as good as we can get it clean with the power washer. It needs a little bit of boiling. So I'm going to put a full gallon of Mrs. K's in here. This is a 40 volume liquid developer I get from the beauty supply. You can use Aquasilk, a product we've talked about for years. You can buy it at the pool supply. Anything with liquid peroxide in it. This is 12% by volume. There's no exact math when you're doing skull work. I have really gotten into the habit of just taking this bucket, which I think is 7 gallons, and just using a gallon for everything. It just is what it is. Even that smaller bucket, 7 gallons, I use 1 gallon. It's just easy math for me. I know that I've invested $19 or $20 into that bottle per the skull. It's no big deal, it's no great loss, and I've completely gotten away from saving it and reusing it. In the early films, I was saying save it, you can reuse it over and over. You can, I just don't like the product as much as when that peroxide is super fresh. So let's bring this to a boil. I'm gonna wash this, and I'm gonna do my best to fit those nose pieces back on. Each animal's unique, so that shouldn't just fit on this. We probably have to do some trimming, and if it doesn't look good, then we'll leave it as is. If it helps the aesthetic, then we'll put them on there. But that's that, and then I'm gonna wrap up the elk pedicle, and then I'm gonna slide it in there once it's warm, and we'll patch that nose piece back on. Expect to find tons of beetles and bugs in places you had no idea they could get. That's why the beetles do such a good job of cleaning skulls. The downfall to that side is degreasing. The downfall to this side with boiling is bone damage. 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Once you get used to both systems, you can use it. I'm looking for a good beetle guy out there. I will come your way, film your process, help your business, and then we can talk about the benefits of both sides. I'm not a beetle guy for no other reason than this is happening in my home, and there's odor that's associated with it, and then you have to be able to keep up with it. Although I have a bunch of skulls, I could do 15, 20 in the same day, as to where the beetles may take a couple of weeks or whatever. I don't have that time and luxury here. If I had a shop, I would incorporate both systems. The beetles for the guys who really want nose pieces and all that stuff, and boiling otherwise. There isn't a better method, and it's not a rivalry between the two. It's just two different ways of doing it, and whatever works for you is the best. Let's go.
More often than not, I get a little wordy. You can see here all the bugs that are coming up right up in that boil. It's crazy. I'm going to drop the new nose pieces and nose bones in a basket, set it in there so it all whitens together, and then I'm going to get to washing on this elk and see if I can get that paint off. I can tell you for sure whoever did this skull originally couldn't get it clean, and so they painted it. That's a huge no-no. It was white, but in a couple years it was flaky because all the grease that was inside, and it just wasn't good. So I wrapped the antlers, I set it down in the color mix with the cows, and then I pull it out and I start washing, and I can instantly see that they never got the nerve endings outside of the lower part of the eye socket that goes back to every hole and every orifice. If you're looking at a skull you've got on the wall or you've done, and there's a dark spot, dark of any kind, pretty good chance there's something in there. Tissue, nerve ending, blood, you name it. Make sure that's clean and sanitary first. This elk is 20 years old and I'm digging out a nerve ending. Y'all, look at the amount of grease that's on top of this peroxide. This is 10 minutes. That's crazy. A lot of times I'll take a sponge and I'll gather up what I can, or just kind of, slosh it out so it's not inside the boil. And I know we're going back and forth, but let me show you. I'm going to take the auditory bowl, the earbuds out of that cow, and it's going to clean it up so much. And then we'll go back to a quick fitting on the nose pieces, and then I'm going to show you everything done. A bit of a tip as well. If you pull the skull out of a boil and say you've lost the natural nose piece, why it's hot and why that bone is hydrated and kind of flexible. If you slide that nose together right then, get it together nice and fit, when it dries, it'll just have enough perfect natural shrink to hold everything together, and you don't ever have to glue it. I was kind of hoping I could do that with these nose bones, where I could get them fit, tap them into place, and then everything would kind of shrink and stay. It did for the most part, but I still had to put a little glue here and there to make sure it didn't fall apart. And then you can see I just took a pair of scissors and kind of trimmed around these nose bone to get it to fit as good as I could. When everything was dry, I used a Dremel and kind of did a little more trimming. and then glued it all together, just trying to make the skull itself look complete. All right, let's just do a great big fast forward here and take a look at everything finished.
All right, wrapping up this very, very patchy video. I was carrying on quite a bit in the beginning about summertime skulls. This skull right here, this little black Hawaiian, I was like, man, I'm telling you, something's not right. Just like I was telling you via the nose, something was a little off. It was a little bit funky. And so I just took it out because I'd have to give it back. I took it out and I started to wash in these little holes above the eyes. Every hole, every orifice. And sure enough, here come a whole bunch of maggots. Now that skull's dry, been clean, done for over a week before I smelled it. And whether or not there was just moisture settled in there and it was this a wet, dark place for it to go, I don't know, but I get really, really finicky in the summer making sure these things are done. So here's a look at that big old wide ram. You can see here there's no way around it. Once you wash it clean, you can see the horn core. It's not something you have to fix or worry about. That's what that animal, that's what you're up against. And that's what the hunter or the shooter is gonna get. There's your pig. This is that other ram. You can see how he had a big old wound in there. And then this is that patched elk. You could see how much oil come out of this elk, and there was nothing left on his nose for these things to bond. So I had to take a little piece of bone up underneath, glue it, clamp it, and then take some sinus cavity and put it on the outside. I hate the way it looks, but there's no, this is what it is. This thing's been just destroyed from being worked on. It never got cleaned. Then I went to it, took a little integrity out of the bone because I was boiling, got all the oil, all the paint off it, pulled those little veins out of the tear ducts. Just is what it is. Oh, and then the cow. Let me show you this cow. You know, one of the things that so many of us want is this perfection in these skulls. You don't always get them in a condition that you can get perfection out of them. There's just no way around it. This one is either hide stained or soil stained, but that skull, this color you see here is never going to come out. So you leave it. It just is what it is. It's the way it was found. You can see the nose patch. You can see the kind of that, I don't know what you call this, kind of a crown. It just is what it is. But when it hangs on the wall like that, it looks aesthetically pleasing. All right, as good as we can get. The horns have been mop and glued. They feel a little bit better, not quite as chalky. I guess to summarize this whole film, it's never going to be exactly right, but do the best you can with what you got and be happy with it. Don't apologize for it. So much of it's out of your hands. Make sure you're using your nose. Make sure you're degreasing properly and seal them up with mop and glue. Thank you for watching.